Welcome to Windows on the World. Now, we've talked about regeneration, the way that London, especially in most major cities in the country, are being re-engineered. And we've gone into this in quite some depth. Today, we're going to talk about Soho, the heart of London, how it's changing, what's happening, the corporatisation. Our guest is Anne Pigalle, who has sang and sung and continues to sing around Soho at the last remaining watering holes and clubs, which are closing quite rapidly. Now, this is from her press release for a new exhibition, and states, "We live in a time where the ruling elite and the landowners who own the urban spaces and only seem interested in lining their own pockets are increasingly destroying the soul of our communities and crushing culture as we have known it, forcing the locals to move out and closing down even protected venues just to make a quick buck." Soho is a prime example. It is the heart of London, and this issue seems to be happening more per square foot than anywhere else in the world. Take Madame Jojo's Cabaret Club, Berwick Street Market, totally vanished or abeyant, and the 12 Bar Club in Denmark Street, the oldest building in London. They're just a few examples. Anne Pigalle, the last chanteuse, says, "Stop the carnage. Respect our buildings and our souls, and we will respect you. Keep the human spirit and places of interest and characters alive. Consider the locals. They are human." Anne has lived and sang in the clubs of Soho for many years, and it's a topic very close to her heart. That's her press release. Welcome, Anne Pigalle.
Hello again, it's nice to be here again.
Yes, you are on the show.
We have interesting guests all the time.
We have interesting guests all the time. Today we've got you. You're a very interesting guest.
Okay.
You came on the show a couple of years ago, didn't you, when you had an album out?
That's right.
So what's changed in Soho since we last spoke?
I think it's really been changing since the 80s, to tell you the truth. But now it's gone to such a huge extent. I mean, I'm not leaving the sinking ship. And I'm not leaving it as well because I'm not the only one, I think a lot of people feel the way I do. I mean, we all made our careers because there were music clubs in Soho. And so less clubs in Soho, which is just a kind of big exaggeration of what's happening in the rest of the world. Less club in Soho, less interesting musical acts.
Yeah, what we're seeing is a sort of degradation of culture, really, isn't it? And this is a big thing. I mean, we went to a meeting in the Elephant and Castle. The whole of the Elephant and Castle is going to be regenerated up to the Old Kent Road.
Sure, and it's not just happening in Soho.
No, but what you're going to have is a Costa Coffee, a little mini supermarket, and you can't really call these places nightclubs, can you?
No, the point is that Soho is very important because it's different from the rest of London, it's different from the rest of England. It has its very specific identity. In the 1700s, 40,000 French Huguenots came over and settled between Spitalfield and Soho. And they brought with them a lot of things, the silk industry, like the Courtauld family, Smithers Silvery, the medicine, the banking, the food, so many things, and more than anything else, the spirit of freedom. And in a way, so it's very similar to a Pigalle in this sense, because it was all about freedom, people leaving their country because they didn't want to be killed, and forming a community, working hard too. They were not people that just came here and just sat. I mean, they were very hard working people. So that's really why Soho is very important in that sense, because it represented a freedom. People could come here, do their work, make a living, and then of course the spirit of a bohemia followed, because where you have a community, you have places where people get together. You have places where people sing songs together. Just to say how bad things are. A friend of mine with an art dealer actually signed a lease for a place, and he wanted to sell art, of course, being an art dealer. And in the lease it said that he wasn't allowed to sell art, you see. So there is a control and a monopoly of what people are supposed to do today in Soho. So basically you're not allowed to do things that has anything to do with culture, like art and music, and so London is going to become Soho is going to become like a Covent Garden, a big commercial centre. Why will people want to come to London if there is nothing interesting to watch anymore? The point is that because Soho has been so related to music and art. I mean, obviously the clubs were Francis Bacon, Lucian Freud, all these people. I mean, it was just the most, one of the most interesting places in the world in terms of mixed, and even when you know a little bit more about the history of London, you know that one of the club, there was a Matisse painting. Matisse used to hang out in Soho, and he actually painted a wall of one of the clubs, which when the club discovered there was one of the walls painted by him, they obviously sold it, The Huguenots were the first self-proclaimed immigrants, and so it was very interesting to see that through this exchange, so much interesting and fantastic ideas came out, and this is being at the moment completely destroyed. A history, no past a history, and no willingness to create a future one. So obviously, these buildings are being bought by people that will not live in them. They're being destroyed and being, made. And nobody is having fun. I mean, the whole point about freedom and why people go to another place to start a new life is that they want to make a life for themselves which is interesting and fun. And Soho was the place where you would go and have fun. And on Valentine's Day, I was looking at the couples in the coffee shops, made out of glass. In Soho, when I was going through, and everybody just looked so bored.
Well, I think that's the thing. What they've done is they've homogenised it all. There's a few places that are left. There's one or two little places, but when those people do go out, because they're going to have to, because what's really forced this is the rent rises, isn't it? Places like the Stockpot, which has been there since the 1960s, all those places have gone, really. There's a couple of little clubs left, but when those... Yes, but they will get taken over by corporates, or they'll become like really expensive and again with no personality. But the thing is that this has been going on a long time, because Westminster have been clamping down on entertainment venues very, very harshly for the past 10 years, haven't they? So what do you see as the future then? Do you think people will take it back?
Well, I was on Soho radio yesterday with Spears. And we were saying, we made it happen, because we're talking about the punk days. We made it happen once, we're going to make it happen a second time. We want to reclaim. We want to reclaim our space, because in reality, Soho belongs to the bohemians. It belongs to the misfits. It doesn't belong to the property developers. I mean, financially, right now it does. But there is a lot of empty properties in Soho.
So how much of Soho's owned by Paul Raymond still, or
by
his family?
Daughters,
yeah,
his family. A third, a bit more.
And do you know what their plans are?
Well, you know what their plans are. I mean, they're going to reopen JoJo's, which probably will be like a very sanitized institution. We want our spaces back, and there are a lot of empty spaces, and I have started to do performances, and so not in the clubs, because often when they know that I'm playing in the club, they cancel what I do. So I do a lot of secret things.
Why do they cancel it then?
Well, or they give me one, and then after that they say, oh, maybe it's a good idea if you go back to France, And it's amazing, isn't it? So, because it's not that I'm such a threatening person, but they don't like somebody who took a different kind of talk. Everybody has to talk this CRP talk. Everybody has to talk this money talk. And I talk like an artist. So even though all these CRPs they want to be artists themselves, they think that if you wear a beret that makes you an artist. They are not. So they don't like the people that actually are artists, because they want to get rid of these people, So they want to put instead their own culture, which is not a culture, which is a kind of.
Well, it's kind of the culture is money, cocaine, coffee, and booze.
Fine. I mean, that's fine. There's room for that. There's room for that, but there's also room for people who want to express themselves. So yeah, there's still a lot of empty spaces, and one can do things secretly. Anyway, the point is that I'm having this show, which is more like an art show, mid-March, from the 17th of March to the 30th of April at James Cut. We Are Cuts in Soho, which is actually a hair salon where David Bowie used to have his haircut. It's a very cool place, and they're happy to have my art. So that's what I'm saying. There's only two galleries left in Soho, and they belong to the people who own Soho, and. So, I'm sorry, but we have to stand up. I mean, too many people just don't say anything. Too many people.
Well, I don't think they understand what's happening, a lot of them. I mean, the thing is that over the past 10 years, I've seen this corporatisation going on. But when all these little places have closed down one by one, haven't they?
Yeah, it's just not. I mean, the buildings, of course, because the buildings there they represent a lot in terms of authenticity, atmosphere and everything. But it's more about all the communities and all the artists being thrown out of what is really their home, because Soho was the home to music and to art and to the arts. They don't like people getting together, because as soon as people get together, they talk ideas and they go, oh, what's going on?
Well, that's the main thing, that they are totally scared of people getting together and standing up and doing something.
Right.
So it's the divide and rule strategy.
That's
Now,
right.
Your exhibition, 17th of March, 30th of April.
To the 1st of April, yeah.
It's a private view. Thursday, 16th of March, 6:30 to 8:30, and a short performance will take place by yourself. So that's annepigalle.com. We'll put that up on the screen.
It's called the Hall, which you can interpret with the W or without the W. Somewhere in the galaxy there is an empty space, looking down with envy at the human race. The enveloping shadow is shaping its contour. With a velvet armor, it is as black as a widow. Do hear the call, welcome the fall, approach the goal, point to the hall. To precisely define it takes more than a word, and to experience it, allow a mellow chord. My pleasure to be here again.
Thanks, Anne. That's it from Windows on the World for this section. We'll see you soon.